The fluorescent lights of JFK Airport's Terminal 4 cast harsh shadows across the polished floor, illuminating a scene that had most travelers keeping their distance. Gate 47, scheduled for the 7:15 p.m. flight to Miami, had become an island of tension in the busy evening rush. Dominic Russo stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, his broad shoulders rigid beneath his custom-tailored charcoal suit. At 38, he carried himself with the kind of authority that made people instinctively step aside, not from respect, but from recognition of something dangerous beneath the surface. His dark hair was impeccably styled, his jaw sharp and perpetually set in a hard line. But tonight, that carefully maintained composure was cracking. In his arms, his 18-month-old daughter Sofia writhed and screamed, her face red and tear-streaked, tiny fists beating against his chest. The sound was relentless, a high-pitched wail that had been going on for nearly 40 minutes. "Boss, maybe if we—" Marco, one of his security team, stepped forward hesitantly. "Don't." Dominic's voice was low, controlled, but edged with warning. "Just don't." 3 men in dark suits flanked him at a respectful distance, their eyes constantly scanning the terminal. To most observers, they looked like business associates. To those who knew better, they were exactly what they appeared to be: armed bodyguards protecting one of New York's most powerful crime lords. An elderly woman in a floral dress had attempted to approach 20 minutes earlier, cooing about the poor dear baby. But one look from Antonio, Dominic's younger brother and consigliere, had sent her scurrying back to her seat. A young couple whispered to each other, the woman's expression sympathetic until her companion pulled her away, having recognized Dominic's face from news reports carefully worded to avoid libel. Dominic adjusted his hold on Sofia, trying a different position. Nothing worked. Nothing ever worked. For the past 6 months since her first birthday, his daughter had been inconsolable more often than not. The nannies, he'd hired 5 in rapid succession, had all failed. The pediatricians found nothing wrong. Sleep consultants, child psychologists, even a specialist in infant trauma from Johns Hopkins. Thousands of dollars and countless sleepless nights. And still, his daughter cried like the world was ending. "Flight 2847 to Miami will begin boarding in 15 minutes, a pleasant voice announced over the PA system. "We'll be starting with our first-class passengers and those requiring special assistance." Sofia's screaming intensified, if that was even possible. A woman nearby actually covered her ears. Dominic felt the familiar burning in his chest, helplessness mixed with fury, though he couldn't identify who or what to be angry at. How could a man who controlled millions of dollars in operations across 3 states be completely powerless in the face of his own child's tears? "Sir," Antonio appeared at his elbow, voice low and urgent. "Maybe we should reschedule. Take the jet instead." "No." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Commercial flights don't attract attention. The jet does. We stick to the plan." The plan didn't involve her having a complete meltdown in the middle of JFK. She has complete meltdowns everywhere, Antonio. At least on a plane, it's confined. Dominic bounced Sofia gently, uselessly. Her little body was rigid with distress, arching away from him. "Where's Christina?" "Bathroom." Again, Antonio's tone suggested the nanny was hiding more than attending to personal needs. Dominic couldn't blame her. He wanted to hide too. Across the gate area, Elena Martinez repositioned her carry-on and checked her watch. 7 minutes until boarding. She'd been watching the situation unfold with the kind of professional assessment that came from 6 years as a flight attendant and another 5 before that, in a very different career. The baby had been crying since Elena arrived at the gate 30 minutes ago. The man holding her, clearly the father, was well-dressed, handsome in a cold, dangerous way, and completely out of his depth. The security detail was obvious to anyone with eyes. The tension radiating from the group had created a 6-foot buffer zone that no other passengers dared cross. Elena had seen it all before. Not this exactly, but variations. Rich men who thought money solved everything. Babies who sensed their parents' stress and amplified it. Families flying with problems that couldn't be left on the ground. What caught her attention, though, was something else. Something in the baby's cry that wasn't just frustration or tiredness. Elena heard distress, yes, but also something deeper. Recognition, maybe. A pattern she'd heard before in another life. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're now ready to begin boarding Flight 2847 with service to Miami." The gate agent's voice cut through the terminal noise. "We'll start with our first-class passengers and any families with small children." Elena stood automatically, smoothing her navy blue uniform skirt. She'd be boarding early anyway as crew, but she moved toward the gate with purpose, her professional smile in place. As she passed the group with the crying baby, she caught a glimpse of the little girl's face, 18 months old. Maybe 20. Dark curly hair plastered to her head with sweat and tears. Olive skin flushed red from exertion, but it was her eyes that made Elena pause. Dark brown, almost black, and filled with a kind of panic that shouldn't exist in someone so young. The father noticed her looking. His gaze snapped to Elena with the intensity of a man used to cataloging threats. Elena gave him a slight, professional nod and kept walking, but she felt his eyes follow her all the way to the gate agent. "Evening, Sarah," Elena greeted the agent, scanning her boarding pass. "Thank God you're here," Sarah muttered. "That baby's been screaming for—" "I know. It's fine." Elena smiled reassuringly. "Where am I working tonight?" "First class. Carla called in sick, so you're solo up there." "Perfect. Or possibly terrible, depending on how this went." Elena made her way down the jetway, the sounds of the boarding area fading behind her. The aircraft was a Boeing 737-900, configured with 16 first-class seats in a 2-2 arrangement. She began her pre-flight check with practiced efficiency, ensuring the galley was stocked, safety equipment was in place, and everything was secure. 10 minutes later, passengers began trickling in. The first-class cabin filled quickly with the usual mix: business travelers in expensive suits, an elderly couple probably flying on miles, a young woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Then came the security team. 3 men, eyes sharp, movements coordinated. They took seats 2A, 2B, and 3C, positioning themselves strategically. Elena's internal radar pinged. These weren't just bodyguards. These were professionals. The father appeared next, still carrying the screaming baby. A blonde woman in her 20s followed, the nanny by the exhausted look on her face, and a younger man who bore enough resemblance to the father to be family, brother probably. "Sir, you're in 1A and 1B, Elena said with her practiced professional warmth. "Let me help you get settled." Dominic Russo looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Elena held his gaze steadily. She'd learned long ago that showing fear to men like this was a mistake. Respect, yes. Caution, absolutely, but not fear. "I'm fine," he said shortly, maneuvering past her with Sofia still wailing against his shoulder. The nanny took 3A, looking like she wanted to disappear into the seat. The brother, Antonio, she'd heard him called, took 1C. Across the aisle from the father, Elena waited until they were seated before approaching. "Can I get you anything before we take off? Water? Juice for the baby?" "She won't take anything," Dominic said flatly, his attention on Sofia as he tried again to adjust her position. "She hasn't eaten in 4 hours. Sometimes they get fussy with pressure changes," Elena offered. "A bottle during takeoff might help." "She doesn't use a bottle anymore." His tone suggested this conversation was over. Elena nodded and moved on, helping other passengers stow bags and find their seats. But her attention kept drifting back to 1A, where the baby's cries had settled into a rhythmic, heartbreaking sob. The father's jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. His hand on his daughter's back was gentle despite the tension in every other part of his body. The captain's voice came over the PA. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure." Elena took her jump seat near the galley, buckling in as the aircraft pushed back from the gate. The baby's crying continued unabated. Elena could see several passengers in economy, visible through the curtain, exchanging looks. This was going to be a long flight. Takeoff was uneventful. The moment the wheels left the ground, Sofia's crying reached a new pitch. Elena watched as Dominic closed his eyes briefly, exhaling slowly through his nose. It was the first crack she'd seen in his armor, a moment of pure exhaustion. Once they reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign dinged off, Elena unbuckled and began drink service. She worked efficiently, taking orders, delivering beverages, maintaining her professional demeanor, even as Sofia's wails provided a constant soundtrack. When she reached row 1, she found Dominic staring out the window into the darkness, Sofia's rigid little body held against his chest. The baby's face was buried in his shoulder, her cries now interspersed with hiccups and gasps. "Sir, can I get you something to drink?" "Scotch, neat." He didn't look at her. "And for the baby? We have apple juice. Milk." "She won't take it." Elena hesitated, then made a decision that would change everything. "Sir, I have some experience with children. Would you mind if I tried something?" Now he looked at her. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and carried the weight of too many sleepless nights. "You think you can do something 5 nannies and 3 doctors couldn't?" "No promises, but sometimes a different person, a different voice." She shrugged. "May I?" For a long moment he just stared at her. Elena could see the war in his expression, pride fighting with desperation, suspicion battling exhaustion. Around them, the other passengers were pretending not to listen, but the cabin had gone noticeably quieter. "Fine." He shifted, carefully passing Sofia over the armrest. The moment Elena's hands touched the baby, something shifted. Sofia's crying hitched, paused. Elena settled the little girl against her shoulder, one hand supporting her bottom, the other rubbing gentle circles on her back. She began to hum, nothing specific, just a low, soothing melody. Sofia hiccuped, sobbed once, then, gradually, began to quiet. Elena felt the baby's rigid muscles start to relax. She continued humming, swaying slightly even though they were at cruising altitude. She'd done this before, in another life, in hospital rooms with babies recovering from surgery, small bodies trying to heal from trauma they were too young to understand. "Shh, sweet girl," Elena murmured. "You're okay. You're safe." 2 minutes later, Sofia's breathing had evened out. Her tiny fist had clutched Elena's uniform collar. Her head rested heavy against Elena's shoulder. She was asleep. The cabin had gone completely silent. Elena looked up to find Dominic staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Shock, definitely, but also something that looked almost like fear. "How did you—" He stopped, jaw working. "Sometimes babies just need a change," Elena said quietly. "New person, new energy. It's nothing you did wrong." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. She'd felt Sofia's body relax the moment Elena touched her. The baby had been searching for something, and somehow, she'd found it in Elena's arms. Antonio leaned forward from across the aisle, his expression wary. "That's impossible. She never—" "Boss, she hasn't slept more than an hour at a time in weeks." "I can see that," Elena said softly, still swaying gently. Sofia's breathing was deep, and even now, her little body completely limp with sleep. "She's exhausted." "So am I," Dominic said, and for a moment, the mask dropped completely. He looked like what he was, a father at the end of his rope. Elena made another decision. "Why don't you let me hold her for a bit? You should eat something. Rest." "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Elena gave him a small smile. "It's kind of my job. Passenger comfort and all that." The tension in Dominic's shoulders eased fractionally. "Thank you. Just doing my job, Mr. Russo." "Dominic Russo." He extended his hand. Elena shifted Sofia carefully and shook it with her free hand. His grip was firm, warm, and she felt calluses that didn't match his expensive suit. "Elena Martinez. The scotch? Coming right up." Elena moved through the cabin as carefully as possible, Sofia sleeping soundly against her shoulder. She prepared Dominic's drink with one hand, a skill she'd perfected over years, and delivered it along with a warm towel and a menu. "Thank you," he said again, accepting the glass. His eyes kept drifting to his daughter, disbelief still written across his features. For the next hour, Elena worked the cabin with Sofia asleep in her arms. It was awkward, inefficient, and completely against protocol, but no one complained. If anything, the other passengers seemed relieved to have the crying stopped. Several smiled at her as she passed, one woman even mouthing, "Thank you." Elena had done meal service, collected trash, and was preparing coffee when she felt Dominic's presence behind her in the galley. "I should take her," he said quietly. "You've done enough." Elena turned, careful not to jostle Sofia. "She's fine. Really, it's been over an hour." He reached for his daughter, and Elena noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "I don't understand this. She hasn't slept like this since—" He stopped abruptly. "Since?" Elena prompted gently. His jaw tightened. "It doesn't matter. Can you show me what you did? The way you held her?" "Of course." Elena demonstrated the position, the gentle pressure on Sofia's back, the slight rocking motion. As she explained, Dominic moved closer, studying her technique with intense focus. When he was close enough, Elena caught his scent. Expensive cologne mixed with something warm and masculine. She also noticed the thin white scar along his jawline, the kind left by something sharp and deliberately aimed. "Here," she said, carefully transferring Sofia. "Support her head. Keep her close to your chest so she can hear your heartbeat." The moment Sofia left Elena's arms, her eyes flew open. The baby took one look at her father and immediately began to cry again. "No, no, no," Dominic muttered, trying to replicate Elena's position. "Sofia, please." The crying intensified. Other passengers stirred, uneasy murmurs rippling through the cabin. "Let me try again," Elena said, and took Sofia back. The baby quieted instantly, snuggling back against Elena's shoulder with a shuddering sigh. Within seconds, she was asleep again. Dominic stood frozen in the narrow galley, staring at his daughter. When he finally looked at Elena, there was something raw and painful in his expression. "What does that mean? She doesn't want me?" "No," Elena said firmly. "It means she's overtired and overstimulated, and right now, for whatever reason, I'm calm and you're stressed. Babies feel that. They respond to it. I'm always stressed." "I know." The words came out softer than Elena intended. She saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she understood. "But that's something you can work on. Right now, though, she needs sleep. Let me keep her until we land. It's only another hour." Dominic looked like he wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. "All right, but I want—" He stopped, regrouped. "I need to know how you did this. My daughter hasn't slept through the night in months. I've hired every specialist, tried every method, nothing works, but you walk over, and suddenly she's sleeping like an angel." "Sometimes it's just timing," Elena said, though she suspected it was more than that. She'd felt Sofia's body respond to her touch, the way the baby had immediately sought comfort from her specifically. Or maybe she sensed, "I've done this before." "You have kids?" "No." Elena's response was quick, practiced. "But I used to work with children. Before this." "Doing what?" The question was casual, but Elena heard the calculation behind it. This was a man who assessed threats, who needed to know everything about the people around him, especially people his daughter responded to. "I was a pediatric nurse," she said, sticking to the partial truth she'd been telling for 5 years. In Chicago before I moved to New York. Why'd you change careers? Burnout. Another partial truth. This seemed less stressful. Dominic's expression suggested he didn't entirely believe her, but he nodded. I'd like to hire you. Elena blinked. Excuse me? As a consultant for Sofia. Clearly you know something the others don't. Name your price. Mr. Russo, I'm a flight attendant. I don't do private consultations. Everyone has a price, Ms. Martinez. His tone wasn't cruel. Just matter of fact. I'm willing to pay whatever it takes to help my daughter sleep. Elena felt the familiar twist in her gut, the urge to help warring with the knowledge that getting involved with a man like Dominic Russo was dangerous. She'd built a quiet life here, safe, anonymous. The last thing she needed was to attract attention from New York's criminal underworld. But then Sofia shifted against her shoulder, making a small, contented sound in her sleep, and Elena felt something crack in her chest. Let me think about it, she heard herself say. How long? I'll have an answer by the time we land. Dominic studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. He returned to his seat, and Elena continued her service with Sofia, asleep in her arms. She felt multiple sets of eyes tracking her movements, Dominic's security team watching her with suspicion, the brother assessing her with calculating interest, the nanny looking at her with what might have been jealousy or relief, and Dominic himself, his gaze returning to his daughter again and again, something unreadable in his expression. As they began their descent into Miami, Elena reluctantly woke Sofia to ensure she was safely in her father's arms for landing. The baby whimpered, but didn't fully wake, settling against Dominic's chest with surprising ease. Whatever you did worked, Antonio commented from across the aisle. She's been fighting sleep for months. She just needed to feel safe, Elena said, then wondered why she'd said it. The landing was smooth. As passengers began gathering their belongings, Dominic stood, Sofia asleep against his shoulder, and handed Elena a business card. My private number, he said. Call me when you've decided. I meant what I said, whatever it takes. Elena took the card, feeling the weight of the choice before her. On one side, her quiet, careful life. On the other, a baby who desperately needed help and a man whose world she'd sworn never to enter again. Mr. Russo, she said as he prepared to leave, can I ask you something? Of course. When did Sofia's sleeping problems start? His expression darkened. 6 months ago, right after her first birthday. And before that? Before that, she was fine, perfect even. Pain flickered across his face. She started sleeping through the night at 8 weeks. Then, suddenly, everything changed. What happened 6 months ago? Elena asked quietly. Dominic looked at her for a long moment, and she saw the war in his eyes, the desire to tell the truth battling with years of trained secrecy. Finally, he said, her mother died. I'm sorry, Elena said, and meant it. So am I. He shifted Sofia in his arms. Think about my offer, Ms. Martinez. My daughter needs help, and clearly, she trusts you. He walked off the plane with his entourage, leaving Elena standing in the galley with his business card in her hand and 1,000 questions in her mind. The rest of the deplaning was routine. Elena went through her post-flight duties mechanically, her thoughts elsewhere. She noticed the gate agent staring at her as she finally left the aircraft. What was that? Sarah asked. I saw you carrying that baby for like an hour, just helping out a passenger, Elena said lightly. That wasn't just any passenger. Do you know who that was? Should I? Sarah lowered her voice. Dominic Russo. He's connected, if you know what I mean. My boyfriend's a cop, and he says Russo basically runs half the organized crime in New York. Money laundering, racketeering, the works. They can never prove anything, but everyone knows. Elena's stomach sank. She'd suspected, but having it confirmed made everything more real, more dangerous. Thanks for the heads up, she said, already planning to throw the business card away. But that night in her small apartment in Queens, Elena found herself staring at the card. She thought about Sofia's tear-streaked face, the way the baby had immediately calmed in her arms, the desperation in Dominic's eyes. She thought about her own past, the career she'd lost, the calling she'd abandoned. She'd sworn she'd never practice medicine again, never put herself in a position where her decisions could cost lives. But this wasn't medicine. This was just helping a baby sleep, wasn't it? Elena set the card on her nightstand and tried to sleep, but all she could see was Sofia's face, so much fear in such a small person. And beneath that, a question that wouldn't leave her alone. Why had the baby responded to her specifically? What had Sofia sensed that made Elena different from everyone else who'd tried to help? The answer, Elena suspected, had something to do with the scars she'd noticed on Sofia's tiny arms, scars that looked medical, scars that told a story no one had shared yet. And if Elena called that number, if she walked into Dominic Russo's world, she knew she'd be demanding answers to questions that powerful men didn't like being asked. The card sat on her nightstand, both a promise and a threat, as Elena finally fell into uneasy sleep. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Elena's studio apartment in Queens, casting pale light across the cramped space. She'd been awake since 5, sitting at her small kitchen table with her laptop open and a cold cup of coffee forgotten beside her. The search results painted a clear picture. Dominic Russo, 38. Suspected head of the Russo crime family. No convictions despite multiple investigations. Money laundering allegations, racketeering charges that never stuck. Witnesses who recanted or disappeared. His late wife, Isabella Russo, née Constantino, had died 18 months ago. Complications during childbirth, according to the brief obituary Elena had found. But it was the other articles that made Elena's hands shake. A restaurant bombing 3 years ago, 7 dead. A federal prosecutor found dead in what was ruled a suicide, though conspiracy theories abounded. Legitimate businesses that everyone knew were fronts, the kind of man who built empires on blood and fear, and his baby needed help. Elena closed her laptop and picked up the business card she'd been carrying in her pocket since the flight. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, just a name and a phone number. No company, no address. The kind of card that said everything by saying nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate Sarah, the real Sarah, not the gate agent, asking if Elena wanted to grab brunch. Normal life beckoning, safe life. Elena texted back, "Rain check? Have something I need to take care of." She stared at Dominic's number for another 10 minutes before dialing. He answered on the second ring. Ms. Martinez. No greeting, no surprise. He'd been expecting her call. "Mr. Russo." Elena forced her voice to stay steady. "I'd like to discuss your offer, but I have conditions." "Name them." "I'm not moving in. I'm not quitting my job, and I need complete honesty about Sofia's medical history. Everything." A pause. "The first 2 are acceptable, the third is complicated. Then we don't have a deal." "You don't negotiate from a position of strength, Ms. Martinez. My daughter needs you more than you need this job. That's where you're wrong." Elena stood, pacing her small apartment. "I can walk away." "Can you?" Another pause, longer this time. When Dominic spoke again, his tone had shifted, less authoritative, more human. "Come to my house this afternoon, 3 o'clock. We'll talk. Just talk. I'm not agreeing to anything yet." "Understood. I'll send a car. I'll take an Uber." "No." The authority was back. "You'll take my car. You live at 4723 Vernon Boulevard, apartment 3C. The car will be there at 2:30. Elena's blood ran cold. "How do you—" "I know everything about you, Ms. Martinez. Or should I say, Dr. Vasquez." The line went dead. Elena stood frozen, phone clutched in her hand. He knew. Of course he knew. Men like Dominic Russo didn't leave anything to chance. He'd probably run a full background check before the plane even landed. The question was, how much did he know? At exactly 2:30, a black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows pulled up outside Elena's building. The driver was a mountain of a man with a shaved head and a neck thick as a tree trunk. He opened the rear door without a word. Elena had changed 3 times, finally settling on dark jeans, a white blouse, and a blazer. Professional but not trying too hard. She climbed into the SUV, noting the leather interior and the complete absence of small talk from the driver. The drive from Queens to Coral Gables took 45 minutes. Elena watched the city change through the tinted windows, from working-class neighborhoods to increasingly affluent streets, finally arriving at a gated community where the houses weren't just large but fortified. The Russo estate sat behind 12-foot walls topped with discreet security cameras. The gate rolled open silently, revealing a circular driveway with a fountain at its center and a mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from a Mediterranean coast. White stucco walls, terracotta roof tiles, arched windows, and enough square footage to house 20 families comfortably. The driver opened her door. "Main entrance. Someone will meet you." Elena climbed out, her professional composure firmly in place even as her heart hammered. This was a mistake. She should have stayed away, should have thrown that card in the trash, should have— The massive front door opened, and a woman in her 60s appeared. She wore a simple gray dress and sensible shoes, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was kind but weary. "Ms. Martinez, I'm Maria, head of the household. Please come in." The interior was exactly what Elena expected. Expensive without being ostentatious. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that was probably worth more than Elena made in 5 years. But it was also strangely impersonal, like a hotel suite rather than a home. "Mr. Russo is in his office," Maria said, leading Elena through a hallway. "He asked me to bring you directly." "How is Sofia?" Maria's expression softened. "Exhausted, poor thing. She cried all night after you left. Mr. Russo hasn't slept in 2 days." Guilt twisted in Elena's stomach. She'd known taking Sofia in the plane would make things harder afterward, but she hadn't fully considered the consequences. Maria knocked on a heavy wooden door, then opened it. "Ms. Martinez is here, sir." Dominic's office was dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and windows that overlooked a manicured garden. He stood behind a massive desk, phone pressed to his ear, and held up one finger. "Wait. I don't care what he thinks he can negotiate," Dominic said into the phone, his voice cold. "The terms are final. He either accepts by midnight, or we move to alternative solutions." A pause. "Good. Make sure he understands what alternative solutions means." He ended the call and looked at Elena. In daylight, in his own domain, he was even more intimidating than on the plane. He'd traded his suit for dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that did nothing to hide his powerful build. His dark eyes assessed her with the same intensity as before. "Dr. Vasquez?" he said. Or do you prefer Martinez? Martinez. I haven't been Dr. Vasquez in 5 years, but you were. Top of your class at Northwestern Medical School. Pediatric surgery residency at Chicago Memorial. Youngest attending surgeon in the department at 28. He moved around the desk, perching on its edge. Then 5 years ago, you performed emergency surgery on a 7-year-old boy with a ruptured spleen. He died on the table. The family claimed malpractice. Your medical license was suspended, then revoked. You disappeared. Elena's nails dug into her palms. You did your homework. I always do. What I'm curious about is why a surgeon with your reputation would have her license revoked over what appears in the medical records to be a straightforward complication. The boy had been in a car accident, severe internal bleeding. You did everything correctly. Apparently not. Or I'd still be a doctor. Or someone wanted you to stop being a doctor. Dominic tilted his head. The family who sued you, the Castellanos. You know who they are? Elena's breath caught. I didn't at the time, but you do now. She nodded slowly. Organized crime family, Chicago-based. When I found out, I tried to fight the charges, but witnesses changed their stories. Evidence disappeared. My lawyer advised me to accept the license suspension and move on. The Castellanos are rivals of mine, Dominic said quietly. Or they were. They've been significantly weakened in recent years. Different management, fewer territories. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand something, Dr. Vasquez. The people who destroyed your career are my enemies, which means in a sense we're on the same side. I'm not on anyone's side. I just want to help your daughter. Do you? He stood, moving closer. Or do you want to prove you're still capable of saving children after failing to save the one that mattered? The words hit like a physical blow. Elena felt tears burn behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. That's cruel. It's honest. You want honesty? Here it is. I need someone who can help Sofia. You need redemption. We can give each other what we want. And if I can't help her, then you'll have tried, which is more than anyone else has done. His expression softened fractionally. Look, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to be clear about what this is. My daughter hasn't slept through the night in 6 months. She screams for hours. Nothing helps. Then you walk over on a plane and suddenly she's peaceful. I don't understand it, but I'm not questioning it. I'm desperate enough to trust it. Elena took a breath, steadying herself. Tell me about Isabella, about the birth. Dominic's jaw tightened. What does that have to do with everything? Trauma at birth can cause lasting anxiety in children. I noticed scars on Sofia's arms, medical scars. I need to know what happened. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, quietly, Isabella went into labor early, 36 weeks. We were at a restaurant, one of mine. She'd been having contractions all day but insisted she was fine. His hand curled into a fist. We were in the middle of dinner when her water broke. I called an ambulance, but before it arrived, he stopped, his face going blank. The look of someone reliving something terrible. Before it arrived, what? Gunfire. Someone tried to kill me. 5 masked men. Automatic weapons. My security engaged. It was chaos. Blood everywhere, screaming. Isabella was on the floor, contracting, bleeding, and I couldn't. His voice broke. I couldn't protect her. Elena felt her professional instincts kick in, pushing past her own discomfort. How long before the ambulance arrived? 12 minutes. She was in active labor by then. They rushed her to surgery. Emergency C-section. Sofia was in distress. Cord wrapped around her neck. Oxygen deprivation. They had to intubate her immediately, put in IVs, the works. And Isabella bled out during surgery. Placental abruption from the trauma. They couldn't save her. His voice was flat now, emotionless. So my daughter's first experience of life was violence. Emergency surgery and losing her mother. You tell me, doctor, is that enough to explain why she can't sleep? Elena's heart ached. Yes, that's more than enough. Sofia has trauma-related anxiety. Her nervous system is stuck in fight-or-flight mode. Every time she tries to sleep, her body remembers that danger and won't let her rest. Can you fix it? I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can try. She met his eyes. If you let me try my way. No nannies, no specialists interfering, just me and Sofia building trust. How long? As long as it takes. Weeks. Maybe months. This isn't something that gets fixed overnight. Dominic was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, name your price. I don't want your money. I want... Elena stopped, reconsidering. She did need money. Medical school loans still haunted her despite the bankruptcy. 50,000. Half now. Half when Sofia can sleep through the night consistently. Done. When can you start? Tomorrow. But I need complete access. Medical records. Freedom to try different approaches. And no interference from anyone. Including you. You're asking me to trust a woman I met yesterday with my daughter's well-being. Yes, because you trusted me yesterday on a plane. And it worked. Dominic stared at her, and Elena held his gaze. She knew what he saw. A woman who'd lost everything, trying to find meaning again. But she also knew he saw someone who'd held his daughter with competence and care when no one else could. All right, he said finally. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Maria will show you Sofia's room. As if summoned, Maria appeared at the door. This way, Ms. Martinez. Elena followed her through the mansion, up a curved staircase to the second floor. The nursery was at the end of a hallway, a large room decorated in soft pinks and whites with every expensive baby item imaginable, a crib that probably cost thousands, Toys she'd never play with, monitors and humidifiers and elaborate mobiles. And in the middle of it all, Sofia sat in a playpen, tears streaming down her face while a young blonde woman, the nanny from the plane, tried unsuccessfully to comfort her. The moment Sofia saw Elena, she reached out both arms, crying harder. Elena looked at Maria. "May I? Please." Elena lifted Sofia from the playpen. The baby immediately buried her face in Elena's neck, her cries subsiding into hiccuping sobs. Elena felt the tiny body relax, the rigid terror melting away. "I don't understand it," the nanny, Christina, said, sounding defeated. "She's been like this since we got home. Nothing works." "It's not your fault," Elena said gently. "Sofia's been through something traumatic. She needs specialized care." "Are you replacing me?" Elena looked at the young woman's tired face and made a decision. "No, I'm going to need help, but you'll need to follow my lead. Can you do that?" Christina nodded gratefully. "Yes, whatever helps her." Elena spent the next hour in the nursery, observing Sofia's environment and reactions. The baby clung to her the entire time, finally falling asleep against her shoulder. When Elena tried to put her in the crib, Sofia immediately woke screaming. "She won't let me put her down," Elena told Maria. "Has this been happening with everyone?" "Everyone except Mr. Russo. She'll tolerate him holding her, but she fights sleep even then." "What about at night?" "He's been sleeping with her in his arms, in a chair. He hasn't been in his own bed in weeks." Elena's chest tightened. No wonder he looked exhausted. "That can't continue. He needs rest too. You try telling him that. He won't leave her." As if on cue, Dominic appeared in the doorway. His eyes went immediately to Sofia, sleeping peacefully in Elena's arms. Something complicated crossed his face, relief mixed with something darker. Jealousy, maybe. "She's asleep again," he said quietly. "She feels safe with me. I don't know why. I do." He moved into the room, careful not to wake Sofia. "You're calm. Everyone else in her life is stressed, afraid, desperate. But you're none of those things." "I'm terrified," Elena admitted. "I'm just better at hiding it." "Why are you terrified?" "Because I'm standing in a crime lord's mansion holding his daughter, and if I fail I don't know what happens to me." But she couldn't say that. Instead, "Because I've already failed a child once. I can't do it again." Dominic studied her face for a long moment. "You won't fail. Not this time. You can't know that. I can. Because this time no one is sabotaging you. No one is forcing you to work in impossible conditions. This time, you have everything you need, except my medical license." "Details." He waved a hand dismissively. "I have 3 doctors on retainer. If you need medications prescribed, procedures done, I'll make it happen. That's not how medicine works. In my world, it's exactly how it works." He moved closer, close enough that Elena could smell his cologne again. "You want to help my daughter? Then help her. Don't worry about rules and licenses and proper channels. Those things failed you once. They won't fail you here." It was seductive, that promise. To practice medicine again, even in this shadow way. To use her training for good without the burden of bureaucracy and politics. It was also dangerous. Everything about this was dangerous. But looking down at Sofia's peaceful sleeping face, Elena knew she was already too far in to turn back. "All right," she said. "I'll start tomorrow. But eventually you're going to have to tell me the whole truth. About that night. About what really happened to Isabella. About who's still trying to hurt you. Because if Sofia is in danger, she's not." Dominic's voice was hard, final. "I've made sure of it. Extra security, safe locations. No one touches my daughter. Physical danger isn't the only kind. She's living in fear because you're living in fear." His expression darkened. "I'm not. You are. She feels it. Children always do." Elena kept her voice gentle but firm. "If you want her to heal, you need to heal too." For a moment she thought he might get angry. Instead, he just looked tired. "One thing at a time, Dr. Vasquez. Help her sleep. We'll worry about the rest later." He turned and left the room, and Elena realized she'd just agreed to walk into a world she'd spent 5 years running from. Maria touched her arm gently. "He's a good father. Whatever else he is, that's true. I believe you. But he's also dangerous. Be careful." Elena looked down at Sofia, still sleeping peacefully in her arms. "I know." But careful had never been Elena's strong suit. That was how she'd ended up in Chicago, performing emergency surgery on a crime boss's son. How she'd lost everything trying to save one life. And now here she was again, holding another dangerous man's child, promising things she might not be able to deliver. The only difference this time was that she knew exactly what she was walking into, and she was choosing it anyway. 3 weeks later, Elena sat in the guest house on the Russo estate, reviewing her notes by lamplight. It was past midnight, but sleep had become a luxury she couldn't afford, not when Sofia was finally making progress. The guest house was smaller than the main mansion, but still more luxurious than anywhere Elena had ever lived. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a living room with French doors that opened onto a private garden. Dominic had insisted she move in after the first week. When it became clear that Sofia's sleep patterns required round-the-clock consistency, Elena had resisted at first, clinging to the boundary between her old life and this new reality. But watching Dominic try to stay awake in a chair for the sixth night in a row, his face gray with exhaustion, had made the decision for her. Now Sofia slept in a crib in Elena's bedroom, finally able to rest for 4-hour stretches before waking. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Real, measurable progress. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. Is she asleep? Elena glanced at the baby monitor. Sofia was curled on her side, breathing deeply, her small fist clutching the corner of a soft blanket. Yes, 4 hours so far. Thank God. Can I see her? Elena hesitated. She'd established strict rules about nighttime disturbances. No visitors, no sudden disruptions, complete consistency. But she'd also watched Dominic's face every morning when he came to check on his daughter. The relief and longing mixed together in equal measure. Guest house, not the nursery. If she wakes, you leave immediately. 5 minutes later, there was a soft knock. Elena opened the door to find Dominic in sweats and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. Sorry, he said quietly. I just needed to see her. Elena stepped aside, letting him in. They moved silently to her bedroom doorway, watching Sofia sleep through the crack in the door. She looks peaceful, Dominic whispered. She's getting there. The routine is helping. Same foods, same bath time, same songs. Her nervous system is learning to relax. Because of you. Because of consistency. I'm just the one providing it. They stood in silence for a moment. Elena was acutely aware of how close Dominic was standing, the warmth radiating from his body, the exhaustion evident in the lines around his eyes. You should sleep too, she said. When was the last time you had a full night? I don't remember. He ran a hand through his hair. Every time I close my eyes, I see that restaurant. The gunfire. Isabella bleeding. I keep thinking if I just don't. Elena touched his arm without thinking. You can't change what happened. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face. How do you do it? Stay so calm when everything is chaos. Practice. And pharmaceuticals when necessary. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You joke. I'm serious. I was on anxiety medication for 2 years after Chicago. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. Other days I couldn't stop moving. Elena withdrew her hand, suddenly self-conscious. Trauma doesn't discriminate. Even doctors aren't immune. Are you still taking medication? No, I found other ways to cope. Running, meditation, keeping busy. She gestured toward her notes, spread across the coffee table. Obsessive documentation of baby sleep patterns, apparently. Dominic's expression softened. You care about her. It's not just a job. Of course I care. She's a baby who's been through hell. How could I not? Most people would care from a distance. You moved into my house. Your guest house. There's a difference. Is there? He moved closer and Elena's breath caught. You eat dinner with us. You spend 18 hours a day with my daughter. You've rearranged your entire life around her schedule. That's what the job requires. This isn't about the job anymore. His voice was low, intense. You know it isn't. Elena's heart hammered. He was right. Somewhere between the sleepless nights and the small victories, between teaching Sofia to self-soothe and watching Dominic's face light up when his daughter smiled, this had stopped being a job. It had become something much more dangerous. Mr. Russo. Dominic. Please, Dominic. His name felt strange on her tongue, too intimate. This can't become complicated. Sofia needs stability, not what? Not her father falling for the woman who's saving her life? The words hung between them. Elena felt panic rising in her chest. You're not falling for me, you're grateful. There's a difference. You think I don't know the difference? He took another step closer. I'm grateful to Maria for running my household. I'm grateful to Marco for taking bullets for me, but I don't think about them at 3 a.m. I don't watch them with my daughter and feel. He stopped. Jaw tightening. Feel what? Hope. Like maybe we could be a real family instead of just survivors of trauma. Elena's throat tightened. Dominic, I can't. Sofia's cry cut through the moment. Both of them froze. Then Elena moved quickly to her bedroom. Sofia was sitting up in her crib, whimpering but not fully awake. Elena gently laid her back down, rubbing her back in slow circles. Shh, sweet girl. You're safe, just a dream. Sofia's eyes fluttered closed. Within moments, she was asleep again. Dominic stood in the doorway watching. You're so natural with her. I've had practice. No, he shook his head. This is different. You love her. Elena couldn't deny it. Somewhere in the late-night feedings and the breakthrough moments, she'd fallen completely in love with Sofia, the baby who'd been through so much but still reached for comfort, still tried to smile, still trusted despite every reason not to. She's easy to love, Elena said quietly. So are you. Before Elena could respond, Dominic's phone buzzed. He pulled it out and his entire demeanor changed. The softness vanishing, replaced by cold authority. I have to go. Business. At 1 a.m.? My business doesn't keep regular hours. He moved toward the door, then paused. Elena, thank you for everything. After he left, Elena sat in the darkness, her mind racing. She'd felt it too, that dangerous pull. The growing connection that went beyond professional boundaries. But getting involved with Dominic Russo wasn't just complicated, it was potentially fatal. Men in his world didn't have relationships. They had liabilities. The next morning, Elena woke to find Antonio sitting in her living room. Jesus! She clutched her robe closed, heart racing. How did you get in? I have keys to every building on this property. He didn't stand, just regarded her with cool assessment. We need to talk, Dr. Vasquez. Elena's blood ran cold. About who you really are and what you're really doing here. I'm helping Sofia. You're Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of Chicago Memorial Hospital, pediatric surgeon. Lost your license 5 years ago after Marco Castellano Jr. died on your operating table. Antonio pulled out a tablet, scrolling through information. What the official reports don't say is that you were set up. The Castellano family wanted revenge for something. We're still figuring out what, and you were the perfect scapegoat. Elena's legs felt weak. She sat down across from him. Why are you telling me this? Because my brother is falling for you and I need to know if you're playing him. I'm not. The Castellanos are our enemies. Have been for 20 years. Territories, operations, old grudges. The usual. Then suddenly, 5 years ago, they go after a surgeon. A brilliant surgeon with no connection to our world. Antonio leaned forward. Except you did have a connection. You just didn't know it. What connection? The boy who died. Marco Jr. He wasn't in a car accident, he was shot. During a hit that went wrong, our hit. Antonio's expression was grim. My brother ordered it. The target was Marco's father, but the kid was in the car, and our shooter panicked. Elena felt the room spin. No, the report said what the Castellanos wanted them to say. They couldn't admit their heir was killed in a mob hit, so they called it an accident, brought the kid to a hospital. And when he died, they needed someone to blame. Antonio's voice was matter-of-fact. You were just unlucky enough to be the attending surgeon. Oh my God. Elena's hands shook. Dominic killed that boy. Dominic ordered a hit on a man who'd murdered 3 of our people. The boy's death was collateral damage. Unfortunate, but not intended. Not intended? Elena's voice rose. A 7-year-old child died. I know. And my brother has lived with that guilt every day since, especially after Sofia was born. Antonio stood, pacing.
Do you know why he was at that restaurant the night Isabella died? He was meeting with someone who claimed to have information about the Castellano hit, someone who wanted to make peace. It was a setup. They were trying to kill him and his pregnant wife. Elena felt sick. Isabella died because the Castellanos wanted revenge. For their son, for their territory, for everything. Antonio turned to face her. They couldn't kill Dominic, so they killed his wife.
And they would have killed Sofia too if we hadn't gotten there in time. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you've walked into. My brother is falling in love with you. Sofia already loves you, but the Castellanos are still out there, weakened but not destroyed. And if they find out who you are, if they connect you to Sofia, they'll come for me. Elena finished the thought, understanding flooding through her. I'm a loose end, a witness to their methods. Exactly. You disappeared 5 years ago, changed your name, stayed off the grid. Smart. But now you're living on Dominic Russo's property, caring for his daughter, and it's only a matter of time before someone notices. Elena's mind raced. I should leave today. Before what? Before Sofia regresses? Before my brother has to watch his daughter suffer again? Antonio's voice softened fractionally. Look, I don't trust easily. It's kept me alive in this business. But I've watched you with Sofia. I've seen how you look at my brother. You're not playing him. You genuinely care. Of course I care, but that doesn't change the danger. The danger exists whether you leave or stay. At least if you stay, we can protect you. Antonio moved toward the door. I'm telling you this because you need to make a choice with full information. Stay and be part of this family, with all the danger that entails. Or leave and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when the Castellanos will find you anyway. He left before Elena could respond. She sat in the silence, processing everything. The boy she'd failed to save had died because of Dominic. Isabella had died because of that same violence. And now Elena was caught in the middle of a war she hadn't known existed. The rational choice was to run, pack her bags, disappear again, find another new identity in another new city. But then Sofia's baby monitor crackled to life, and Elena heard the soft sounds of the baby waking up, not crying, just babbling quietly to herself, the way healthy babies did. Progress. Real, meaningful progress. Elena went to her bedroom and found Sofia standing in her crib, holding onto the rails, a smile spreading across her face when she saw Elena. Mama, Sofia said clearly. Elena's breath caught. It was the first word Sofia had ever spoken. Oh, sweet girl. Elena lifted her from the crib, tears streaming down her face. Say it again. Mama? Sofia patted Elena's cheek, delighted with herself. The door burst open. Dominic stood there, still in his clothes from the night before, his face showing exhaustion and something else. Fear. Antonio told me he talked to you. I'm sorry. I didn't know he was going to. He stopped, seeing Elena's tears. What happened? Is Sofia okay? She's perfect. Elena's voice broke. She just said her first word. What did she say? Elena looked at him, at the hope and fear in his eyes, and made her decision. Mama. She called me Mama. Dominic's expression crumbled. He moved forward, wrapping his arms around both of them, and Elena felt his body shake with silent sobs. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair. "Thank you for giving her that." They stood like that for a long moment, three people who'd all lost everything, holding on to each other like they might disappear if they let go. Finally, Dominic pulled back, wiping his eyes roughly. "Antonio shouldn't have told you, not like that. I needed to know. And now that you do, are you leaving?" Elena looked down at Sofia, who was playing with the collar of Elena's robe, babbling happily. She thought about the boy in Chicago, about the career she'd lost, about the violence that had brought them all together. She thought about the scars on Sofia's arms, about Isabella dying in surgery, about Dominic holding his daughter night after night while she screamed. "No," she said finally. "I'm not leaving, but we need to establish some ground rules. Name them. First, complete honesty. No more secrets about what happened to Isabella, about the Castellanos, about any threats. If I'm staying, I need to know everything." Agreed. Second, Sofia's safety comes first, always. Before your business, before revenge, before everything. That's already true. Third, Elena took a breath. Whatever is happening between us stops. Sofia needs stability, not romantic complications. Dominic's jaw tightened. "What if I can't promise that? Then I can't stay. You're asking me to pretend I don't have feelings for you. I'm asking you to prioritize your daughter over those feelings. Can you do that?" He stared at her for a long moment. Finally, "Yes, for Sofia. Yes." "Good." Elena shifted the baby in her arms. "Now tell me everything. Start with that night at the restaurant and don't leave anything out." They spent the next 2 hours in the living room while Sofia played on a blanket between them. Dominic told her everything. The hit on Marco Castellano Sr., the boy's accidental death, the years of escalating violence, the night at the restaurant, Isabella's last words, the intensive care unit where Sofia had spent her first 3 weeks of life. "She was so small," Dominic said, his voice raw. 3 pounds, 12 ounces, tubes and wires everywhere. They said she might not make it, and I sat in that NICU for 72 hours straight, watching her fight, knowing it was my fault she was fighting at all. It wasn't your fault. It was. I brought that violence into Isabella's life. I thought I could protect her, but I was wrong." He looked at Sofia, now drowsily rubbing her eyes. "I swore I'd do better with Sofia, that I'd keep her safe no matter what. You are keeping her safe. She's here, she's healthy, she's healing, because of you, because of both of us." Elena reached over, touching his hand briefly. "You're a good father, Dominic. Flawed, complicated, living in a world I don't understand, but a good father. And you're an exceptional mother, even if you're not hers by blood." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning neither could fully address. Sofia chose that moment to crawl over to Dominic, pulling herself up on his leg. "Dada," she said, trying out the new word. Dominic's face transformed. "Did she just say it again, baby?" Elena encouraged. "Dada," Sofia beamed, proud of herself. Dominic scooped her up, holding her close, and Elena saw tears streaming down his face. "That's right, princess. I'm Dada, and that's Mama, and we're going to keep you safe forever." As Elena watched them together, she realized that Antonio had been right. She'd already made her choice. Not the rational one, not the safe one, but the only one that mattered. She was staying. Whatever happened next, she was staying. 6 months had passed since Elena moved into the Russo estate, and the changes were remarkable. Sofia, now 2 years old, slept through the night consistently, laughed freely, and had transformed from a terrified, trauma-ridden infant into a curious, affectionate toddler. She called Elena Mama and Dominic Dada without hesitation, and the guest house had become more home than Elena's apartment in Queens ever was. But the underlying tension remained. The Castellanos were still out there. Dominic's business continued unchanged, and the feelings between Elena and Dominic, carefully suppressed for Sofia's sake, simmered beneath every conversation, every accidental touch, every shared glance across the dinner table. It was a Tuesday morning when everything began to shift. Elena was in the main house kitchen preparing Sofia's breakfast when Antonio entered with a manila folder. "We found something," he said without preamble, "about your case. Chicago." Elena's hands stilled on the cutting board. "What kind of something?" "Evidence, real evidence." Antonio set the folder down. "Medical records that were sealed. Testimony from an OR nurse who was paid to lie. Security footage from the hospital showing 2 men in the surgical wing who shouldn't have been there." He paused. "Proof that Marco Castellano Jr.'s injuries were unsurvivable before he ever reached your operating table." Elena's legs went weak. She gripped the counter. "What?" "The boy was shot in the heart at close range. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. They kept him on life support long enough to get him to the hospital, then blamed you when they couldn't perform a miracle." Antonio's voice was matter of fact, but his eyes held sympathy. "You were set up from the beginning. They needed a scapegoat, and you were convenient. How did you find this?" "Money and pressure. My brother has been investigating for months. He wanted to give you something. Proof that what happened wasn't your fault." Elena felt tears burning. For 5 years she'd carried the guilt of that boy's death. 5 years of believing she'd failed, that her skills hadn't been enough, that she'd let a child die through incompetence or error. "I didn't kill him," she whispered. "No, you tried to save him. That's all you ever did." The kitchen door opened and Dominic entered, Sofia on his hip. The little girl squealed when she saw Elena and reached for her. Mama! Elena took Sofia automatically, holding her close while trying to process Antonio's words. Dominic watched her carefully, reading her expression. You told her, he said to Antonio. She deserved to know. Know what? Elena looked between them. What else is there? Dominic set down the coffee he'd been carrying. I've been building a case. Legal documentation. Witness statements, evidence of corruption, everything needed to clear your name and restore your medical license. Elena's breath caught. Why? Because you deserve justice. Because what they did to you was wrong. He moved closer. And because I wanted to give you back what they took from you. Dominic, Elena didn't know what to say. The enormity of it overwhelmed her. This must have cost. I don't care what it cost. You've given me back my daughter. This is the least I can do. Antonio cleared his throat. There's more. We've also gathered enough evidence to destroy the Castellanos completely. Their operations, their finances, their political connections, everything. One word from Dominic and they're finished. Then do it, Elena said immediately. They deserve. No. Dominic's voice was firm. That's not your decision to make. Violence begets violence. If I destroy them, their allies will retaliate. More people die. The cycle continues. So what? We just let them get away with murder? We let the law handle it. For once, Dominic gestured to the folder. Antonio's been working with a federal prosecutor, someone clean, someone the Castellanos can't buy. We're giving him everything. They'll face justice, real justice. Elena stared at him. You're serious. I'm trying to be better. For Sofia, He stopped, jaw tightening. I'm trying to change. The weight of what he was offering hit Elena fully. He was choosing law over revenge. Peace over war, not just for himself, but for her. When does this happen? She asked. The evidence goes to the prosecutor next week. Your medical board hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now in Chicago. They've agreed to review the new evidence and potentially reinstate your license. Dominic paused. I'd like to come with you, if you'll let me. To Chicago? You shouldn't have to face this alone. Sofia squirmed in Elena's arms, reaching for a banana on the counter. Elena set her down in her high chair, buying time to think. Going to Chicago meant confronting her past, facing the people who'd destroyed her career, standing in front of a medical board that had stripped away her identity. But it also meant potential redemption, the chance to practice medicine again, to reclaim the part of herself she'd lost. Okay, she said finally. You can come. 3 weeks later, Elena stood outside the Illinois Medical Licensing Board building, Dominic beside her, Sofia in a stroller between them. The Chicago skyline loomed overhead, familiar and foreign at once. You don't have to do this, Dominic said quietly. We can turn around right now. I need to do this. Elena smoothed her suit jacket. Professional, conservative, the armor of Dr. Elena Vasquez rather than Elena Martinez. For me, to prove I didn't deserve what they did. Inside, the hearing room was sterile and formal. The board members sat behind a long table, 5 doctors and 2 lawyers, their expressions neutral. Elena's new attorney, provided by Dominic, sat beside her. The evidence was presented methodically. Medical records, witness statements, the security footage showing unknown men in the surgical wing. One of the board members, Dr. Patricia Chen, studied the documents with a frown. Dr. Vasquez, these records indicate that Marco Castellano Jr.'s injuries were catastrophic before he reached your care. The gunshot wound to his heart caused immediate cardiac tamponade. Even under ideal circumstances, survival would have been unlikely. That's correct, Elena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I performed emergency thoracotomy, but the damage was too extensive. He'd lost too much blood before arriving at the hospital. Yet you were blamed for his death. Your license was revoked based on testimony that you acted negligently. Dr. Chen looked up. Testimony we now know was falsified. Yes, another board member spoke up. Dr. Vasquez, why didn't you fight these charges more vigorously at the time? Elena took a breath. Because I was threatened. The Castellano family made it clear that if I didn't accept the license suspension quietly, there would be consequences. I was terrified. I thought if I just disappeared, they'd leave me alone. And did they? For 5 years, yes. Until recently. The board members exchanged glances. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. We've reviewed all the evidence presented. It's clear that a grave injustice was done to you, Dr. Vasquez. Your medical decisions that night were sound. Your skills were exemplary. The outcome was tragic, but it was not your fault. Elena felt tears threatening. 5 years of guilt, of shame, of believing she'd failed, and in 3 sentences Dr. Chen had absolved her. The board votes to fully reinstate your medical license, effective immediately. Dr. Chen continued. We also issue a formal apology for the miscarriage of justice that occurred. Your record will be cleared, and a letter will be sent to Chicago Memorial Hospital recommending your reinstatement to staff privileges, should you wish to pursue that option. Thank you, Elena managed, her voice breaking. Thank you so much. As they left the building, Elena felt like she was floating. Dominic pushed Sofia's stroller, his expression unreadable. "You did it," he said finally. "You're Dr. Vasquez again." "I am." Elena stopped walking, turning to face him. "Because of you, you made this possible. You made it possible. I just provided resources." "Dominic," Elena reached for his hand, forgetting for a moment about boundaries and rules. "Thank you for everything." He looked down at their joined hands, then at her face. "What happens now?" "What do you mean?" "You have your license back. You could return to Chicago Memorial, resume your career, be the surgeon you were meant to be." His voice was carefully neutral. "You don't need to be Sofia's nanny anymore." Elena's stomach dropped. She'd been so focused on clearing her name that she hadn't thought about what came after. I don't know. You should think about it. Really think about it." Dominic pulled his hand away gently. "You gave up a brilliant career. Now you can have it back." That night, in their hotel suite overlooking Lake Michigan, Elena couldn't sleep. Sofia was in the adjoining room, sleeping peacefully as always. Dominic had taken a separate room down the hall, maintaining the careful distance they'd established. But Elena's mind wouldn't settle. She kept thinking about the operating room, about the precision of surgery, about the satisfaction of saving lives. She'd loved being a surgeon. It had defined her for so long. But then she thought about Sofia's first steps, taken just last week in the garden, about the way the little girl's face lit up every morning when she saw Elena, about the family dinners where Dominic gradually relaxed, where laughter replaced tension, where something resembling normalcy had taken root. Could she give that up? Around midnight, there was a soft knock on her door. Elena opened it to find Dominic still dressed, looking exhausted. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Too much to process. Can we talk?" Elena let him in. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, a careful distance maintained. "I need to tell you something," Dominic started, "about why I really wanted to clear your name. You already told me. Justice, that was part of it, but there's more." He ran a hand through his hair. "I wanted to give you a choice, a real choice. Stay with Sofia because you want to, not because you have nowhere else to go, not because I'm paying you, or because you feel obligated." Elena's heart clenched. "Dominic, let me finish. These past 6 months watching you with Sofia, eating dinner together, seeing you build this life with us, I've been selfish. I've wanted you to stay so badly that I didn't consider what you were giving up." He looked at her directly. "You're a brilliant surgeon, Elena. You could save hundreds of lives, and instead you're changing diapers and singing lullabies. I love singing lullabies, I know, but is it enough?" He leaned forward. "I'm giving you an out, a choice. Take your license, go back to surgery, reclaim your life. I'll hire someone else for Sofia. We'll manage. You don't want me to stay? I want you to stay more than anything, but I want you to stay because it's what you want, not because you feel trapped." His voice roughened. "I've spent 6 months pretending I don't love you, pretending this is just about Sofia, but it's not. It's about you, and I need to know that if you stay, you're staying for the right reasons." Elena felt her careful composure cracking. "You love me? How could I not? You saved my daughter. You brought light into the darkest period of my life. You look at me like I'm more than just what I do, more than just a criminal with blood on his hands." He stood pacing. "But that's not fair to you. You deserve someone clean, someone good, someone who can give you the life you should have." "Stop." Elena stood too, crossing to him. "Stop deciding what I deserve. Stop trying to be noble and pushing me away." "Elena, I don't want to go back to surgery. Not full-time. Maybe part-time eventually. Maybe opening a clinic for kids who need help, but I don't want to leave Sofia. I don't want to leave." She stopped, the words catching in her throat. "Leave what?" "This. Us. Whatever this is." Elena put her hand on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palm. "I stayed 6 months ago, and it wasn't just for Sofia. It was for you too. Because somewhere between that airplane and now, I fell in love with you." Dominic stared at her, something breaking in his expression. "You love me?" "I've been trying not to. You made me promise to keep things professional, and I tried. But it's impossible. You're impossible." Elena felt tears on her cheeks. "You're a criminal and a killer, and you've done terrible things, but you're also a devoted father. You're trying to change. You cleared my name when you didn't have to. You gave me back my career and then told me to leave because you thought it was best for me. It is best for you. Let me decide what's best for me." Elena moved closer. "I want to stay. I want to be Sofia's mother. Really be her mother, not just her nanny. And I want to be with you, if you'll have me, knowing that I come with baggage and trauma, and a stubborn refusal to accept easy answers." Dominic's hands came up to cup her face. "Are you sure? Because once you're fully in my world, there's no going back. The danger, the complications. I'm already in your world. I have been since the moment Sofia fell asleep on my shoulder." Elena smiled through her tears. "I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. Both of you." He kissed her then, finally breaking through 6 months of careful restraint. It was gentle and desperate at once, filled with everything they'd been holding back. Elena melted into him, feeling the rightness of it settle into her bones. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." He laughed, the sound surprising them both. "What happens now?" "Now we go home. To Miami. To Sofia." Elena pulled back slightly. "And we figure this out, one day at a time. And your career? I'll think about it. Maybe I'll open that clinic you mentioned. Help kids who can't afford specialists. Use my training for good, she smiled. With funding from a reformed criminal, of course. I'm not reformed. Not yet, but you're trying. That's enough. 6 months later, Elena stood in the small pediatric clinic in a underserved Miami neighborhood, examining a 5-year-old with chronic asthma. The clinic had opened 3 months ago, funded entirely by Dominic's legitimate business ventures, which were growing as he gradually transitioned away from his criminal empire. It was slow work, dangerous work. There were still enemies, still threats, but Antonio had taken over most of the day-to-day operations, freeing Dominic to focus on going legitimate and on his family. Elena finished with her patient and found Dominic in the waiting room, Sofia on his lap. The little girl was coloring in a book, chattering about her day. How was your morning? Dominic asked as they walked to the car. Good. Busy. We saw 12 patients. Elena buckled Sofia into her car seat. I love it. It's exactly what I needed. Good. Dominic pulled out of the parking lot heading toward home. Because I have something to ask you. What? He was quiet for a moment, navigating traffic. Then, marry me. Elena's breath caught. What? Marry me. Make this official. Be Sofia's mother legally. Be my wife. He glanced at her. I know it's complicated. I know I'm not the ideal husband material. But I love you, Elena, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving I deserve you. Elena felt tears starting again. They seemed to happen a lot lately. Yes, I'll marry you. She laughed through the tears. You're right. You're terrible husband material. But I love you anyway. Dominic pulled the car over, earning honks from other drivers. He turned to her, producing a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple diamond ring. Elegant, understated, perfect. I've been carrying this for a month, he admitted, waiting for the right moment. This is the right moment. Elena let him slide the ring onto her finger. All of this. The clinic, Sofia. This is exactly right. From the back seat, Sofia piped up, Mama, Dada, home? They both laughed. Yes, baby, Elena said. We're going home. The wedding was small, held in the garden of the Russo estate. Maria cried. Antonio gave a surprisingly emotional speech. Sofia, in a tiny white dress, scattered flower petals enthusiastically and off course. As Elena walked down the makeshift aisle, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The plane where a crying baby had changed everything. The months of careful boundaries and suppressed feelings. The terror and the joy and the slow, steady building of trust. She thought about the girl she'd been in Chicago. Brilliant, ambitious, certain of her path. That girl was gone. In her place was someone more complicated. Scarred but stronger, less certain but more grounded, a surgeon who'd become a mother, a professional who'd fallen in love with a criminal, a woman who'd lost everything and found something better. Dominic met her at the makeshift altar, Sofia between them. The little girl held both their hands, beaming up at them. We are gathered here, the officiant began, but Elena barely heard the words. She was too focused on the family she'd found in the most unexpected way, too grateful for the second chance she'd been given. When it came time for vows, Dominic spoke first. Elena, you walked into my life when everything was broken. You healed my daughter. You healed me. You took a man who dealt in violence and showed him what real strength looks like. Compassion, patience, love. I promise to spend every day trying to be worthy of you, to protect you and Sofia with everything I have, to keep choosing the right path, even when it's harder, to love you completely, always. Elena's turn. Dominic, I once thought I knew exactly who I was supposed to be. Then life took that away and I had to rebuild from nothing. You and Sofia showed me that family isn't about blood or perfection. It's about showing up, about choosing each other every day, about building something real from broken pieces. She looked down at Sofia. I promise to be the mother this beautiful girl deserves, to love you both through whatever comes, to believe in the man you're becoming, not just the man you were. They exchanged rings. They kissed while Sofia clapped and shouted, yay, and when Elena turned to walk back down the aisle, she caught sight of her reflection in the French doors. Dr. Elena Vasquez Russo, surgeon, mother, wife, all the broken pieces, finally made whole. Epilogue. 1 year later, Elena finished her last surgery of the day, a routine appendectomy on a 7-year-old. The clinic had expanded, now employing 3 other doctors and serving hundreds of families. She worked 3 days a week, spending the rest with Sofia and recently with preparing the nursery for the new baby. She was 4 months pregnant. Unexpected, but wanted. Dominic had cried when she told him. She drove home through Miami traffic, thinking about the strange path her life had taken. A mafia boss's baby falling asleep on her shoulder during a flight had seemed like a random moment, but it had been the beginning of everything. At home, she found chaos. Sofia, now 3, was helping Maria bake cookies, which meant there was flour everywhere. Dominic was on the phone, likely dealing with business, but he smiled when he saw Elena and quickly ended the call. How was work? He asked, pulling her close. Good, long. The Martinez twins needed surgery, tonsils, but they're fine now. And you, the baby? We're both fine. Elena rested her head on his chest. listening to his heartbeat. The same heartbeat that had once seemed dangerous now meant home. How was your day? Antonio's got the Chicago situation handled. The last of the Castellano assets were seized this morning. It's finally over. Over. The word hung between them. The vendetta that had destroyed so many lives, Isabella, the boy Elena had tried to save, 5 years of Elena's life, was finally done. What will you do now? Elena asked. Now? Dominic smiled down at her. Now I'm just a businessman. Boring. Legitimate. Paying taxes. He put his hand on her still small belly. And a husband. And a father. That's more than enough. Sofia ran over, covered in flour. Mama! Dada! Cookies ready. Elena laughed and scooped her up, flour and all. This was her life now. Messy, complicated, built on a foundation of trauma and second chances. But it was hers, and it was exactly where she was meant to be. As they ate slightly burnt cookies in the garden, Sofia chattering about her day, Elena caught Dominic watching her with an expression of wonder and gratitude. What? She asked. Nothing. Just thank you. For what? For falling asleep on a plane. He smiled. For not being afraid. For choosing us when you could have run. Elena reached across the table, taking his hand. I'd choose you again. Every time. And she meant it. Whatever had brought them together. Fate. Chance. A crying baby on a turbulent flight. Had given her everything she'd lost. And more. A family. A purpose. A love worth fighting for.